Pazartesi, Salı, Çarşamba, Perşembe, Cuma.
Aziz milletim, değerli engelli kardeşlerim,
My noble nation, my brothers and sisters with disabilities, dear youth,
hanımefendiler,
ladies,
beyefendiler,
gentlemen,
sizlere en kalbi
as I
duygularımla,
begin my remarks, I
hasretle,
greet you with
muhabbetle
my
selamlıyorum.
most heartfelt emotions and with love.
Engelli vatandaşlarımız ile devlet
I
korumasından
also congratulate
yararlanmış
our
gençlerimizi
citizens with disabilities and young
kamu
people who have
kurumlarına
enjoyed
atanacaklara
state
görev
protection,
yerlerinin
because some of them will
hayırlı
be assigned
olmasını
to
diliyorum.
public positions today. I wish
Ülkemizdeki
them success in their future
engelli
posts
memur
of
sayısı
duty. The number of
bizden önceki
civil
döneme göre
servants with
yaklaşık 10
disabilities in our
kat
country has
artışla
increased by tenfold
56.500
compared to the period before
kişiye
our
ulaştı.
governments and has reached
Az
10,000
önce
has
ekranda da
reached
bunları
56,500 people, as we have just
bugün de
seen
her
in the
eğitim
video on screen.
seviyesinden
And
1304
here today,
engelli
from different levels of
vatandaşımızı
education, we
kamuda
are
işe
hiring for the
yerleştiriyoruz.
first time to various civil
Devlet
service
korumasında
positions
yetişen gençlerimizden
1,304 new citizens
2002'den
with
bugüne kadar
disabilities.
kamuya
From the
yerleştirdiklerimizin
year
sayısı
2002, we have
29 bine
assigned more than
ulaştı.
29,000 young
Devlet
people
olarak
from state
17 yıllık
protection to various
görev
positions.
sürecimizde
So in
hiçbir zaman
our 10
engelli
years,
kardeşlerimize
we have never
duyarsız
been
olmadık.
insensitive
Her
towards
zaman
our brothers and
yanlarında olduk,
sisters with
olmaya
disabilities.
devam
We have
edeceğiz.
always been with them and we will continue supporting them.
Bugün her eğitim seviyesinden
Today, from every
1561
level of
gencimizin daha
education,
atamasını
1,561 new young people will
Böylece
be
Türkiye
assigned to civil
sosyal
service positions
devlet
for the first time.
olmanın gereklerini yerine
And by
getiren
doing
bir
so,
ülke
Turkey
olduğunu
is once again
bir kez
proving
daha
to everyone that
ortaya
it's
koymak.
fulfilling the requirements of
Bu
being
ülkede
a
yaşayan
social
her
state.
birey gibi
Just like every citizen who lives in
ve
this
devlet
country,
korumasında yetişen
we
gençlerimize de
look
sahip
out for the young people under state
kendilerini
protection as
en
well as
iyi
citizens with
geleceğe
disabilities in order
hazırlamaya
to prepare
çalışıyoruz.
them for the best future possible for them.
Geçmişte devletle millet
In the
arasındaki
past, there
ilişkiler
have been long
uzunca
stretches
bir
of time
süre
when
maalesef
the links between the
kopuk yürüdü.
state and the nation
Tek
were
parti
broken.
döneminde
During the single
insanına
party rule,
tepeden bakan,
there was a
milleti
Jacobean
hor hakik
mentality
gören
that
Jacoben
prevailed,
bir
which
anlayış
looked down on
hakim oldu.
the nation or which
Çok
scorned or
partili
despised the
siyasi
nation.
hayata
As
geçilirken
we shifted towards the
milletimiz
multi-party
sadece
political
değerlerine
system,
saygı duyan
the
değil,
nation was
aynı
longing
zamanda
for a new
kendisine hak
administration
ettiği
which was
hizmetleri
not only
getiren
respectful to
bir
its own
yönetim
values but also
anlayışının
was
da
offering
özlemini
the
giderdi.
services that it was
Rahmetli
dearly
Adnan
needing.
Menderes
Late
ve ardından
Prime Ministers,
rahmetli
Prime
Özal
Minister Adnan Menderes
işte bu
and
iki
late
alanda
Özal
birden
carried out
yaptıkları
reforms in these two
reformlarla
areas and they
milletimizin
were able to
gönlünü
conquer the hearts
fethettiler.
of our nation.
AK Parti'nin 17 yıllık iktidarındaki
AK
en
Party
büyük başarısı
has ruled for
hem
17
demokrasiyi
years and
geliştirmesi
its most
hem
prominent
de
success was that
kalkınmayı
it improved
sağlamasıdır.
democracy on one hand and it
Tabii
ensured
kalkınma
development on
bu
the other.
ülkenin
Of course,
vatandaşlarının her birini
development
de
only holds
kapsayınca
a meaning when it
anlamlı hale
includes
gelir.
every citizen of this
Ülkenin
country.
kaynakları
When
eskiden
the
olduğu gibi
riches of the country
sadece
are
bir
left
avuç
to the
mutlu
control
azınlığın
of
emrine
a small
verildiğinde yapılan
privileged
işin adı
minority,
kalkınma değil,
then this is not
adaletsizlik
development,
olur.
it is rather injustice.
Biz Türkiye'nin zenginliğini
We offered the riches of our country to all 81 provinces and people from different walks of life in every part of our country. As we grow Turkey, as we increase production, and as we more than triple our GNP, and as we increase the scope of employment, we paid a special attention to including all of our citizens. We established the best health and social security system in the world, and this was the goal of establishing such systems. We paid special attention so that nobody would be left outside the umbrella of kindness of the state. We have allocated an annual budget of 55 billion liras for social aid. This used to be only 2 billion liras, but we increased this budget from 2 to 55 billion. In the past 17 years, we have carried out social aid amounting to 339 billion Turkish liras. We increased the ratio of social aid within our GDP from 0.3% to 1.2%. In addition to people with disabilities and children under state protection, we also showed special interest to women, to senior citizens, to widows, to orphans and families of martyrs and veterans. As Turkey grows, strengthens and becomes richer, we will continue, hopefully, reflecting the riches to all of our citizens. We are carrying out activities so that persons with disabilities can participate in every walk of life. One of the most important principles to make sure of this is the principle of accessibility. With health and education institutions and offices, our services in every area should be accessible for persons with disabilities and for the elderly. This must be achieved. A person with a disability or a senior citizen who leaves his or her home should be very easily use the sidewalks, the parks, the entrances, the public transport. Likewise, such citizens should run into no obstacle when it comes to accessing tools of information and communication. We have just listened to such a guest. Now 3 students do not have to share one computer. Now we are able to offer a single computer to each student. The way to ensure this is to make all services accessible for persons with disabilities and for senior citizens. They should be designed in an accessible way. Because if in a city the roads, the sidewalks, the entrances of buildings, public toilets or elevators, any element that is needed in any part of the life, if these are not deemed accessible in a country, that means there's a major setback there. And in such a place you cannot talk about being civilized. Starting with our municipalities, every institution which has a responsibility to fulfill must face this fact and act accordingly. As a former municipality administrator, I have personally experienced these issues, because in a city like Istanbul, it's not an ordinary duty to be the mayor of a major city like Istanbul. When I came to office, Istanbul had no water, but we were able to overcome that problem. And we had an Istanbul which was filled with heaps of garbage. We were able to remove them too, and we received a cleanliness award by Habitat. Heaps of garbage were exploding, and 39 of our fellow citizens were crushed by those heaps of garbage in the district of Ümraniye. And when it comes to breathing, air pollution was in a horrible situation, and daily newspapers were handing out masks in the Istanbul of the past. But thankfully, we were able to solve all of those problems. And now we have made natural gas available to all 81 provinces of Turkey so that they all have clean air. The goal right now is to bring natural gas to all of our districts, and currently we have reached more than half of them, and we are working for the rest. As you know, yesterday in Istanbul, in line with the agreement that we signed with Russia, we have launched the project that we call Turk Stream, which goes through the Black Sea and reaches Turkey at Kıyıköy. And through our country, the natural gas will flow to Europe. But of course, hopefully, a majority of what we need in Turkey will be fulfilled this way. This is the kind of country Turkey is today. New investment has to be carried out in line with the principle of accessibility, and all buildings must be transformed as soon as possible. For this purpose, we have set a new goal for ourselves now. 100,000 houses will be built by TOKİ, the state's construction agency, every year. When there are shanty homes, we will give incentives to the residents, and we will make the new housing built by TOKİ available to these people who live in these undesired conditions, because there are such houses and God forbid, if there was a fire in those narrow streets, even the fire department would not be able to access. And the reason is that those streets do not have accessibility. We need to make them accessible as soon as possible. This process cannot be carried out in a haphazard way without any plan or a project. There should be standards of accessibility, and all institutions must run their work according to those principles. With this goal in mind, I suggest that the year 2020 is declared the year of accessibility. With the new projects, physical access as well as digital transformation, and most importantly maybe the mental transformation must be ensured with the steps taken. If a mental transformation is not ensured, that means we have a problem. As the President, I will personally be following this process. Similarly, we need to look out for every child who does not have a family or who can no longer with his or her family. This is one of our foremost duties as the state. Of course, what matters is that the child can grow with his or her family, or maybe at a family who can offer the same feeling, the same atmosphere to the child. Because in the past we used to have very commonly the dormitory style system, which was administered by the civil servants, but it's not really possible to raise children this way. For this reason, since we came to power, we have upheld the system entirely. We have abandoned the dormitory type institutions, and we try to establish a new system where children can grow up in the warmth of a home. Some children are submitted to the protection of the state since they do not have families. We financially and socially supported such children. At the moment, we are supporting more than 128,000 children with their own families. And for children which do not have a family at all, we have spread out the foster family system. And as we did this, we paid a special attention to not divide siblings. At the moment, we have more than 6,000 foster families, which are looking after more than 7,000 children. So, as we always say, the state needs to be a father when needed or a mother when needed. And this is the reason why our land is called Anatolia. It has the word mother inside. Because we are always protecting, as the state, like a father or a mother, our citizens which need protection. Hopefully, in the future, we are going to further spread such services and continue them in a more developed and strengthened way. The family is the backbone of our national existence. For us to reach our goal of a big and strong Turkey, we need to keep the family strong. Because if we don't do so, just like a body without a backbone, the society with no family will have to perish. This is the foremost threat that the Western societies are facing today. The West is collapsing because they have lost the concept of family there. But now the same threat is upon us as well. When families are lost, then the population starts decreasing. Why do I always insist on at least 3 children per family? Because strong nations come out of strong families. We have to establish strong families so that we can become a strong nation. For many years, they ran projects of family control so that the population of Turkey could be decreased. But I claim the opposite. We need to increase our population because I studied economics. The backbone of economy is people. When there are people, when you have a population, you're strong. When you don't have people, you're not strong. Because wherever there are people, there is capital and effort and money. And wherever there are people, there is production and consumption. And without people, none of these exist. When the institution of family disappears, population starts decreasing because when only individuals and their lifestyle prevails, there is no room for children. For this reason, many Western societies will face the risk of being disappearing from the face of the earth. Even though it's not at this level, Turkey has started facing a similar challenge. The age of marriage among our young people is increasing. And both girls and boys, they no longer get married at a young age. Most of them marry after the age of 30 or they do not marry at all. But can this be accepted? You were talking about the state as a father, and I am the person leading the state at the moment. And I recommend young people. The number of people who never get married is also increasing. The extramarital lifestyle is being justified through the media, and maybe more gravely, it is being encouraged. Most TV networks try to promote such a lifestyle, but we need to be careful. Most of the symbols which try to eradicate family are being paved the way for. But on the other hand, behavior that protects family is being looked down on. This is a major threat that we need to fight against altogether. We have mothers among us. We have fathers. We need to run this struggle together. We need to protect the values as well as our family, and we need to understand that doing so does not degrade us, but rather elevates us as a choice. And we need to be able to demonstrate this to our young people, because our God advises us to marry and to reproduce. And extramarital lifestyle has no place among our values. We need to have a stance against this altogether. Our beloved Prophet, likewise, tells us that on the day of judgment, he will be proud of the number of the size of his ummah compared to other communities. This is very important, and we need to be alert about this. And altogether, we need to fight for this, because the new generation, they learn by observing rather than by reading. By reading or hearing, which means if we can demonstrate to them an exemplary family life, they can start imagining a similar future for themselves. Many of the problems that we face, including the violence against women, many of these problems can be solved by strengthening families. Recently, a similar incident happened. A lowly person had an illegitimate lifestyle. He was living with a girl, and he threw some acid on the face of his girlfriend, nitric acid, and she lost an eye. And the punishment that was ruled by the court is 13 years. And I ask around, and the answer that I get is this is the highest time period allowed by the law. But I say, and they say this law was introduced by our government. And I tell my colleagues, why do you respond to us in line with the law? I'm not talking about the law. I'm talking about rights. I'm talking about justice. You have to look for what is fair or what is the right thing to do. What if a similar incident happened to your own daughter? How would you then rule? Would you look at the law? Would you refer to the law, or would you ask whether this is fair or not? For this reason, I'd like to call out to the legal community. Among the lines of law, please do not look at the lines, the sentences, or the letters of law, but rather listen to your own consciences. Justice takes place in what is right. My path is not the path of individual laws, but rather the path of justice. Justice does not equal laws. We need to understand this principle well. And once again, I wanted to remind this. Especially in our country, the violence against women is being used as a pretext in order to attack families. In this new mentality, there is no conscience, there is no compassion that they feel. They have none of these, but we need to continue our struggle at the Ministry of Interior or at the courts. We will continue our fight. And the purpose of this mentality is not to protect women, but rather to take down families. They are trying to portray a picture of violence that does not really exist. For instance, the incidence of women murders is only half of the average of Europe, or 1/3 of global average. But still, they are trying to portray our country as a place where women are being massacred at every corner, at any time of the day. Such efforts are not well-meaning. Of course, we would be the first ones to confront people who exert physical or psychological violence against women, or who have an attempt on the life of women.
Anne olan, eş olan, kız evlat olan
Women are mothers, wives, are daughters, or maybe more importantly, they are half of humanity. And any kind of discriminatory behavior against women we have never accepted, or we never will in the future. Humane sensitivities are being abused in an insidious way in order to undermine or collapse a family, and we cannot ever allow such approaches. From education to media, we will carry out our activities to look out for families in a mentality of full mobilization. For our future and our present, we will try to cherish and empower families, because this is as important as security or as important as economy. There are important milestones in the histories of countries and nations. Around a century ago, we have lost a global state of 600 years, and we have planted a new tree, a tree of the Republic, and we have started a new phase. There have been important breaking points in the history of our Republic as well. What we experienced in the past few years are important because they are an important milestone that will shape our next 50 years or the next century. If we can strongly come out of these difficult times and reach our 2023 goals, we can give a vision of 2053 and 2071 for our young people. With the help of God and with the support of our nation, we have covered a lot of ground in this regard. First of all, we have overturned plans and efforts to take down our country from within through terror activities. There are still people who call, for instance, the Gezi Park incidents a public movement, or people who call the 15th of July attempted coup only an act. These people either have drawn no lesson from what happened, or they are already parts of the plan. Likewise, there was an attempt to surround us with a corridor of terror through our southern border. But we have carried out and successfully completed military operations, and we were able to shatter this corridor of terror. Similarly, they made a plan to limit our country to its own shores. They tried to put into practice such a plan. First, with the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, then with Libya, we have signed agreements in order to destroy this plan as well. Now they are trying to discredit the steps that we take in the Mediterranean. Turkish soldiers are sent to the deserts. They're claiming that our soldiers are put into a pit, but their own hearts have turned into deserts, or their own hearts have turned into pits. As I said in my address in Gölcük, our founder, Atatürk, also had a duty in Libya. And the reason why he was there is because Turks needed to be there. For this reason, Atatürk took our soldiers and he landed in Tripoli. And he got wounded there as well. As they always say, one of his eyes does not function fully. It's not because he was born that way, but rather he was hit in the eye by a piece of a bullet. People who are unaware of such facts, they claim various lies. We are now there in the land of our ancestors, and we're only there in order to eliminate injustice, and we're there because we are invited. We do not go to any place where we're not invited. Turkey is in Iraq or in Syria or in the Mediterranean, and it will continue defending its own rights and its interests to its fullest extent. The security and the future of our country does not start within our own borders, but it starts quite beyond our borders. And people who do not know this are incompetent people who will get the best response from our nation. They are inviting Turkey to give in to the insidious plans that are prepared for it. But this devious mentality has to fail. We are working in order to bring our country to its goals. In this important struggle, of course, we sometimes lose troops, so I wish God's grace on the souls of our martyrs. I wish a speedy recovery to our veterans, because the loss of every martyr is a symbol of salvation, is a warrant of salvation for our nation. Every martyr lights a lamp which ensures that this land will eternally be the land of our country. Every sacrifice that our nation carries out is a lamp that lights our future. A century ago, this nation was led by our founder Atatürk and said freedom or death, and it was victorious eventually. And today, similarly, with our nation, we are having the principle of a single nation, a single flag, a single homeland, and a single state. Hopefully, we will be victorious at the end of this noble struggle. We will work hard, we will shed sweat, and will sacrifice as much as needed. And to achieve this, we will be together, we'll be strong, we'll be brothers and sisters, and all together we will continue being Turkey. And in order to achieve this goal, we will be wherever we are supposed to be, and we're going to confront whoever we are supposed to confront. We'll never shy away from this, because this is not a requirement of only us, but also a requirement of our deep history. Every step taken in this regard is significant. Thankfully, so far we were not taken down, and we continued going forward. We were able to overcome obstacles and overcome traps, and each of these made us even stronger. And we can now see that our way is more open, our vision is more clear. Until we reach victory, we cannot halt, we cannot pause, or we cannot take a step back at all. As we always say, the help of the nation, the help of God, and the support of the nation is always with us. And as long as we have the two, we will always continue going forward with the outcry of do or die, and may God help us on this journey. With such emotions, once again, I would like to congratulate our citizens with disabilities or young people who have enjoyed state protection in their new stations of duty. I would like to thank everyone who made such services possible to our country and our nation. Once again, I greet you with love. Thank you.
Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımıza konuşmalarından dolayı notumuz da var efendim. dolayı teşekkürlerimizi sunuyoruz. Az önce Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımızdan kendisi rica etmişti. Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımız da onu kırmadı. Kamu kurumunda görev yapan Büşra Aydar'ı Annem şiirini seslendirmek üzere sahneye davet ediyoruz.